For another episode of our Gooner's podcast, or Gooner Talk podcast, not Gooner's podcast. That's like, mate, stop shaking your head at me, boy. Thank you ever so much for joining us, of course. The Gooners podcast is another podcast which you can happily go and check out with Mike and Andy. But I'm so happy that you've chosen to join us here this evening. Of course, usually this would be on a Sunday, but as you can tell from my more casual attire, I am currently on holiday, but still producing content for you because that's how dedicated I am to this. Not as dedicated as the other man you can see on your screen looking extremely enthused right now. Drew, how are you doing?
I'm good. Busy Monday. Happy that Sunday kicked off the way it did. So I'm doing all right.
Yeah, obviously you can currently see that there's only two of us, and that is because Kenny, the master of all technical abilities in the world, is having some technical difficulties right now downloading the software to get himself on here. But it was already 10 past, and we were like, we have to start this now. So we are starting it. He may join us at some point if he works out the little gremlins in the system. But yeah, we're going to start off with just talking with us two, which I'm sure is enough for you, Drew. Drew always looks tired, as Liam Goff says there. So there you go. Greetings from California from Greg. Greetings from New York and Toronto from Tyrone. Two places at once. That's interesting. How are you from two places at once? Greetings from Norway, says Vega. We got all the people from all over. Please tell us from where you are coming from. Thank you for tuning in. So, Drew, obviously, first game of the season, Newcastle 1-0 win. Tell me your thoughts. You're currently silent. I can't hear a word you're saying, mate.
The button didn't unmute.
There you go. Professional as always.
I think this was a performance where it was more about the result and not about the way we performed. Obviously, we're not full strength yet with our best 11. Some players are coming back from, just lack of fitness with injury issues. So St. James Park's always a tough place to go, particularly, over the last couple of years where we struggled away from home against teams we should be beating. So overall, I was happy with the 3-point haul. Obviously, there's still little niggling things you look at. We really kind of struggled to generally break them down when we wanted to build through play. I thought we were better, honestly, being more direct than in possession, which was kind of ironic considering how we played last season under Emery. I thought you can maybe pinpoint a couple of players who, didn't start so great, but again, it's match day one. I'm very impressed with the way a lot of the youngsters played. I thought Ainsley Maitland-Niles was fantastic at right back. I thought Reece Nelson did okay. I thought he was good in the first half, but he tailed off significantly in the second half. So,
yeah,
I mean, that kind of irked me a little bit, but you obviously know that already. I thought Joe Willock was excellent as well. I thought Martinelli came on. He was bright. So it did show that the youngsters that were still getting time in preseason that aren't being loaned out, it's clear that Emery sees a role in them for them in the team this coming year, whether if it's just, again, maybe bit part starts in the league, coming off the bench to be effective maybe for 15 or 20 minutes, certainly in the Europa League, getting starts there, getting starts in the domestic cups. So what we wanted to see, I thought we saw. Everyone wanted to see, Pepe start, but I don't think that was going to happen. David Luiz as well. Maybe he'll start against Burnley. I don't know. But overall, I thought, a 3-point haul on day one where it easily could have gone differently. I'm fine with it. So.
Okay, yeah, I think it was one of those games in which you knew we were going to be a little bit rusty. We obviously come out of a tough preseason play against some really good opposition against Barcelona, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, but we saw some really good performance in those. But when you come up against a team like Newcastle in the first game of the season, it's going to be gritty. It's going to be taxing. If the atmosphere is behind the Magpies, that can usually work to their benefit. But there was this weird atmosphere, I thought, in the stadium, because even though it was the first game, there was the whole protest sort of thing going on about Mike Ashley. So there was sort of that tentativeness in the crowd. And I think that definitely fed into the game. It was quite, I wouldn't say dull, but it was a little lacking in energy at the start of the match. It wasn't as much as I thought. But there were some areas of really where we were quite vulnerable. I thought in the first half, Newcastle seemed a little bit more on it than we did. Crosses were going into the box. Shelby hit the post. Were there any points in that first half where you're thinking, if this is last season and some of the defensive mistakes that we've known ourselves to sort of be culprit to, did you think that we were going to go 1-0 down, or did you expect us to take the lead at some point?
It's tricky. So my best friend, he's a big Newcastle supporter. Him and I were chatting throughout the match, and he was just saying, and I was agreeing with him, that overall on another day, Newcastle could have stolen something. When you really look at the chances that we created predominantly throughout the match, apart from that one mistake that Jetro Willems came in and made almost immediately that led to the goal, we didn't create a ton of clear-cut chances throughout the game. And in contrast, Newcastle created enough to get a goal. You have that one dinking run by Joelinton where he smashed it into Leno, and we got lucky that he straight at the keeper. You said Shelby's effort, as you mentioned. Alan Saint-Maximin came on, and he was pretty threatening. He did get into some dangerous positions a couple times. I do think that, again, if it was last season, maybe Newcastle scored, particularly if someone like Saint-Maximin actually started and he could have been effective for the whole 90-minute period instead of just 20. I think we kind of dodged the bullet there. But again, it's match day one. We still have kinks to work out. I understand that most of the players in the team, obviously, were regulars last year, so the unfamiliarity shouldn't be there. But you do still kind of wonder, even with our best strength 11, how well the defense is going to really shape up this season, especially because it looks like we're going to be in the back four, which I think is what we all want anyway. But you have to question: is it the level of the players? Is it the lack of organization? Is it the lack of communication? There's a lot of different factors that you could ask as to why. At certain points on Sunday, we kind of were maybe at the skin of our teeth. So, again, that's why you take the result, you run with it, you build for Burnley. Again, against another team who's going to sit back in 2 deep blocks, they're going to look to you on the break. We don't want to see those same mistakes, those same moments where decisions are everything that we keep somehow making the wrong ones. We don't want to see that at Burnley. It's just about progression, right? So you're never going to be perfect on day one. Only City and Liverpool can come in on match day one and look like they're in mid-season form already. No, we're not that good. Spurs aren't that good to do that. Neither are Chelsea or United. So no, it's just about those little steps to make. And as long as we clean our act up by another 5% on match day 2, that put us in better standing to keep doing the same thing for match day 3 and 4 because we have Spurs and Liverpool back to back. So we can be concerned, but again, it's so early. I think that some of what you're not surprised about, some of those fan reactions on social media, it's frustrating.
Yeah,
too much. There's a measure of frustration you can have, but give it time, So,
in terms of obviously when we, the big question is leading up to these games is always going to be who's going to play. And for me, I was quite surprised at the lineup. There were some people I actually thought deserved that starting berth, and in the chat, Barder Olsen says there, my first impression seeing the lineup made me a bit doubtful, but a very good bench. A long time I saw that, but players really impressed me, and I think that when we're coming to pick a team to obviously play that first game, as Emery said in his pre-match press conference, he said that he was only going to pick the players that were 100%. And that's definitely what we saw. What were your sort of thoughts on some of the surprise additions to the team, like Willock, like Nelson, these youngsters coming in, a lack of new signings starting? Obviously, we saw a few enter the fray later on, but it was mainly the guys we're used to and some of the youngsters that played. So Willock and Nelson, in terms of youngsters, how much of an impression did they make on you?
I mean, I think Willock showed that he could be in line for more starts in league where you wouldn't necessarily expect. The best you can do from a coaching standpoint is when the young player impresses you and they keep impressing you, especially throughout the entire preseason program, you have to reward that. Or else what's the point of trying to develop youth players? If their progression is clear and it looks like they can handle the rigors of what you want for when you're starting midfield roles, then you play him. It's not that I think he should be a first choice midfielder now for the club. I'm not saying that, but I do think that these are the types of performances that are going to earn him more starts where you may not have seen him get if he wasn't performing to this level. Again, I do think that over the course of the season, he probably would have gotten certainly every Europa League group stage match, all 6. He would have gotten the early stages of the domestic cups for sure. Maybe a bit part start in the league, depending on fitness levels, depending on the injury issue, depending on just natural rotation. But he played really quite well. And he's a kind of midfielder that we've been lacking. And I think that people wanted us to replace Ramsey with. And when we got Ceballos, they were looking at the kind of player who can pick up the ball, he can progress play through, taking the man on. It's not just about passing. I think he can do that. His work rate is fantastic off the ball, particularly also in defense, which you need if we're going to try to continue to be a pressing side as well. Yeah. So I was quite pleased with that. As for Reece Nelson, his entire performance was a microcosm of why I said he wasn't ready to be first choice for the club. He was very good / very good in the first half. He wasn't fantastic, but he was good. He was lively. You saw his pace, obviously. His turn of pace is fantastic. He's not afraid to take players on, but these are all things we already knew. His final ball was poor, in all honesty. He had a lot of periods where he had to make choices, and he picked the wrong choice. And in the second half, his performance levels dipped, and then eventually he was removed. And I think that's shows you that if he's not consistent throughout a performance, and then as well, he wasn't consistent throughout the year at Hoffenheim. He never really regained his form after he lost his place, and it kind of showed. But it doesn't mean he doesn't have potential. It doesn't mean he's not a good young player, and it doesn't mean that he won't play, because he's going to play. Again, like Willock, he'll get the cups, he'll get Europa League, we'll get that rotation. But I think he's in a direct scrap with Martinelli for the backup left wing role, or if it's just Nelson, you just throw him as the backup right wing, depending. I think that's what we'll see. I think he started because not everybody is fit. I genuinely think if Lacazette and Pepe were ready to go, we would have saw Pepe right wing, Aubameyang on the left, and Lacazette to the middle, and then you would have had Nelson and Martinelli could have come off the bench.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ready for what people expect, but he, again, like Willock, he has the potential. If he keeps putting in performances, he'll get his chances. And Emery said as such in the media, in his press conferences, that the door is open for the young players, but we have to put our best foot forward in the league. They'll get time in the cups and whatnot, exactly what we've all been saying since the summer. But it also just means that we have to handle his progression well. He's 19 years old. There's no reason to rush him into playing. You only do that when that 19-year-old is like the level of Kai Havertz, as an example, where it's so clear that he's that good, that he can not just play a pivotal role in your team, but he is the face of your club moving forward. Then you put that faith in that player. Nelson's not at that level yet. Neither is Nelson. Neither is Willock. So they'll get their chances. I thought they did okay. Willock was good. Nelson was okay, and then we build from there and see how they develop.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of surprises in the lineup, and a lot of surprises in terms of not just what you're talking about there with the youngsters, but also some of the players that we saw coming back from a loan. And I was reading this article, which I'm going to show you up on the screen now, from Football London, from Josh Williams, who's talking about the unexpected scenario which may have solved Unai Emery's defensive problems at Arsenal. And the article's about, as you can see from the picture there, our one and only Callum Chambers. Now, when we signed David Luiz, obviously from Chelsea, we sort of expected he's going to be that experienced head in the back line with Socrates. That's who I thought it would be. But the way Chambers played, and it's certainly something that I'm going to focus on in the tactical breakdown, and obviously you can check that out either tomorrow or Wednesday with myself, Drew, and Graham Brooks producing a tactical analysis and breakdown of the game against Newcastle. But Callum Chambers really surprised me. He was calm, he was collected, he used his strength well, his positioning was good, he wasn't caught out at any moment, his passing was good. So for you, when you're seeing someone like Callum Chambers return to the side, did you expect him to hit the ground running as much as he did against Newcastle?
Maybe not as much as he did, but would anyone be necessarily completely surprised? He was, he got voted Fulham's Player of the Year last year. Obviously, it was in a relegation effort, and there's nothing that can be helped, but it doesn't mean that he didn't play well. So he was still getting that time on the pitch that you need to continue your development. So what was important was he could come in, and he did do a job. I think he was better than anyone expected, but it doesn't mean that he wasn't capable of that over time. I just think we happened to get it on match day one, and we got lucky in that regard. The question moving forward is, when everyone is fit, what's the plan? And if he keeps playing as he did on match day one, when Holding finally comes back, when David Luiz regains full fitness, what do we do with that? Do we keep playing him? Do we rotate someone like Socrates and Luiz because they're very similar in terms of their strengths and weaknesses? How do we handle that? Because certainly when Holding is fit, we would all presume that Unai Emery is going to defer to him as one of his first choice center backs, given how well he played before his injury. So, yeah. But again, what it does do is it allows rotation if we need it. Now, for me, I don't like rotating center backs very often. I don't like when coaches do it, obviously professionally. I don't do it when I coach necessarily, because that's one of the positions you need full, constant understanding for 90 minutes every single week. And it's so pivotal to your team and to your performances, where if you keep toying with that, you might struggle. And I think we saw that last season when Emery kept rotating a lot. It's hard for them to really get that understanding together. But then again, when you have players who are performing well, you have to reward them. So, you never know. There could be an avenue for him at right back if Maitland-Niles goes down injured and Bellerin is struggling after his injury recovery. We don't really know. But if he plays to that level, you have to play him almost.
100%.
You have to keep using your players who are on form at the time. And if he's on form, no matter who we have, you have to go with him. I think it's that simple, though.
I think we are joined by our good friend Kenny Ken. So we're just going to add Kenny Ken to the stream now. How are you doing, Kenny? Can you hear me?
I can hear you perfectly. Can you hear me, Drew?
I can. I can. We can all hear you. You're looking very close to the camera, mate. You're giving everyone a great view of your face there. There we go.
Sorry, Lex. It's just trying to get this new. When we did it last time using Google Hangout, and of course, I've spent more time watching cricket than football because, like I said, I don't really take pre-season football cricket. So I had no idea that you're using this new device.
Yeah, sorry, that is my bad. I should have told you.
No, at all. No, Tom, you'll find that everyone's using it. But what's happened is I was trying to get it all on, and I went, hang on here. There's got to be an easy way. So I've worked out that there was an icon right next to it, and I missed the icon. So I just want to apologise for
That's all right, mate. That's all right. We've still got about 20 minutes of live time left, so plenty of time for you to have your say. So, in terms of Newcastle, then, what was your main reaction?
My main reaction is that I was very chuckled a bit when I saw a lot of fans, complaining about performance, complaining about the personnel we use. And I was thinking, well, yeah, the game wasn't great. It didn't excite me. It was quite a bit of a dull game. But however, the way Unai set up, my argument was, well, first and foremost, we couldn't lose that game. Unai Emery set that team up not to lose. So what he did is that he looked at the fitness of his players, especially looked at the young players, knew that we needed a lot of, young legs. We needed a lot of strong runners in the team. So he picked his strong runners. And that's why Nelson played. That's why Willett played. He had Xhaka there for the experience. He knew Callum Chambers would have let us down at centre-half. And he picked Maitland-Niles. So first and foremost, the way we shaped up, Newcastle were not going to get out of back four. And if they did get through, we're going to rely on Bernd Leno to make that save, which he did from Joe Leeton in the first half. After that, Newcastle resorted to maybe a long-range effort from one of the substitutes. But apart from that, all I wanted was a clean sheet and us to just get the point and get out of there, and that's what we did.
100%, mate. When we're talking about specific players, we've covered the youngsters, we've covered Chambers. But there's someone that obviously we haven't covered, and it's someone who got a lot of criticism in that game. We actually had a question coming from Twitter from Dragomir Vardarov, obviously a long-time listener to the show, and he says, why do people ignore all the good things Xhaka brings to the side and only focus on every single mistake he makes? Drew, I'll start with you, and then I'll go to Kenny for his thoughts.
I think it's the nature of Xhaka's mistakes, what they lead to in the run-up to a goal-scoring chance. And I don't want to blow over everything that I've already been saying, at his time at Gladbach. But the issue with Granit Xhaka is no one expects a midfielder to be perfect. Mistakes are going to happen, obviously, especially when you're trying to build up play. One errant pass and a teammate's trying to break, and it could end up in disaster. But the problem with Xhaka is his lack of mobility allows him to be more exposed than someone else, like a Torreira, like a Ceballos, like even Guendouzi, who has excellent recovery pace, and we've seen that when he messes up, he can at least track back and try to rectify the issue. I think that's why people exacerbate their exaggerations over it. So for me, I do see, and I've always seen what he does bring to the side in terms of how well he does control possession, the diagonal balls he does play, his strength on set pieces. Even when he decides to have an effort from outside the box, it's usually a pretty decent one, unless he doesn't catch it. So obviously, and he does have leadership qualities, despite me not thinking he should be captain. He does show leadership on the pitch, and these are all things you do need in your side. But I think where people get hung up on him is that he's in such a vital role in the team, not just in terms of positioning, but what we expect out of him and how he makes us tick in a way.
Yeah.
Where when he makes mistakes, they usually kill us, or it usually leads into a dangerous set piece because he has to bring the man down because he can't track back in time. These are all things I think people focus on, and rightly so. You can't really blame them, can you? And the worry for me is, and maybe some of you as well, is that as football progresses and mobility is becoming such a huge thing, and in midfield especially, you look at someone like N'Golo Kante, who's 5'6", 5'7" at a stretch, but look how good he is as a midfielder because of how mobile he is, and that's what you really need. Claude Makelele was the same way. Is that going to end up killing off Xhaka in terms of his career at Arsenal just because he's not mobile enough as a midfielder? Or are we going to stick with him? Or is it just going to be he's favored under Unai Emery, but let's say Unai Emery doesn't get his extension. Next manager comes in, will we bin Xhaka because maybe the manager doesn't fancy him? If Emery rates him for the side, what he can do, then we have to stick with it and hope that Emery can also then conjure up what to do on the pitch to give him more protection. Because that's the other issue, is that the midfield balance has to come into question. If you're using someone like Granit Xhaka, you have to use someone next to him who will cover, or make sure the center backs understand that one of the things they have to contend with is you're going to have chances come that way, because if he loses the ball, he's not getting back. And you just have to find that balance and hope that balance is the correct one, and then see how it moves forward from there. But I do think he should still be playing. But again, though, we're at a moment, and I know Kenny will agree with this, he always used to say it last season, is that no one can hide, right? If you're not performing and someone in your position is outperforming you, then that person has to start. And I said the same thing about Ozil this season. If he's not playing well, and we have like Dennis Ceballos on the side who can come in and play well, then you start Dennis Ceballos. No one should be exempt from criticism just because of who they are in the team. It's who is on form, who's providing for the team with what we need, and you can take it from there. That's how teams outperform other teams week in, week out, and that's how you go on and you actually challenge. So I think he's safe for now. I understand the complaints about his mistakes, but he does bring us things we would miss when he's not there, and we've also saw that last season as well. So, again, game-by-game basis, if the form slips, we have depth now. Someone can replace him, and someone put up in the chat just before, they said, listen to the chat, we're debating who should be playing. That's a difference over last season. Because we didn't have other options. Now we have options. Everyone has to prove themselves week in, week out, and that's all you really expect.
Kenny, mate, what are your thoughts on the whole Xhaka deal? A lot of people in the chat box are saying that we shouldn't be hating on him, that we need to support the player, and he's undroppable at the moment. But I think you have to identify and highlight the mistakes when they are made. But what's your thoughts on the Swiss midfielder?
Well, yesterday I thought Xhaka just did a simple job. He kept it simple, kept possession ticking over, and he was a great help at both ends of the box in terms of set pieces, especially from a defensive issue. And if you look in the second half, there was before we got a goal, there was a corner routine where he's flicked it on, used his height, and unfortunately we weren't quick enough to sort of read that situation. Granit Xhaka is always going to divide opinion, because simple reason is that I don't think they understand what Xhaka brings to the game. They don't understand that Xhaka's a great long pass to the ball. You know, he can switch the play, he can control the pace of the game, and when he's at it, he can give us that control. My disagreement with Xhaka is that he doesn't do it consistently. In terms of our league, the mobility thing is an issue, because what's happening is that, you know, the first two seasons, teams are pressing Xhaka, and then what they're doing is they're using, whenever they do get the ball, win the ball from one of his mistakes, it's a kind of the situation where they think, right, there's a spare man, let's run into the space that he's meant to occupy. And that, I think that's where the difference between Granit Xhaka is that it's the defensive issues where he does lose position. He hasn't got the mobility. But as Drew says, if you want to get the best out of Granit Xhaka, just give him some protection, give him some runners, you know. And what you want Granit to do is that just to keep it simple, when we don't have the ball, make sure that he is, you know, like I said, taking lead of someone like Torreira and saying, right, that's our back four. Then it's in that position. Just stay there. That's all he's got to do. Is stay there. You know what I mean? Keep it simple. If the ball's not on, don't try it. Just give it. There's nothing stopping Granit for just giving it back to Chambers, giving it back to David Luiz, and like I said, stay in position. I think he's trying too hard, but I think this season, in terms of not just Xhaka but all the players, there are competition places now. Unai Emery cannot say that he hasn't got a big enough squad. You know, the boards have worked really hard to give him the support that he needs. I don't think he got the support he did last season. He's got virtually his own team. And so, really and truly, if Xhaka's off form, or he's in a red zone, we can give Xhaka a rest and try something else. So we do have that advantage where, Granit doesn't have to play every game. We can, keep him fresh. But, I just hope this season that the good outweighs the bad with Xhaka, because if the good outweighs the bad, we're going to have a good season.
Yeah, 100%. Right, let's get through some of these questions then. So quick fire round, so try and keep your answers as short as possible. Drew, coming to you first. Liam Goff, very simple question. Why does our fan base always need someone to hate on?
I think it's just the nature of social media. I don't think that's something that you saw until the likes of Twitter and Instagram exploded the way it did. So I think that's kind of how it begins. It always seems to be everyone, and that's it.
Fair enough. Question rather directed at me from Mancunian Red FC. What's up with the cameras this season? Are we downgraded? No, I should clarify for those. I'm on holiday using a holiday Wi-Fi. So appreciate that. I'm on holiday. I'm still providing content for you guys, so that's still going. Next question came in. Where is this from? It was from, unless it's been deleted, but I'm pretty sure it's from down at the bottom here. It was a question asking about. Oh, here we go. Apparently, Bordeaux has given 5-year contract to Koscielny. What are your thoughts on that, Kenny?
No, like I said, I'm pretty neutral about that. The whole Koscielny thing, it was a bit of a mess. And the player, I think what's happened is the player misinterpreted any discussion he had with the board. And I'm convinced that he had a discussion with the previous regime, like Arsene and Yvonne.
Yeah.
And he was led to believe that he was going to leave on a free. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Because one of the reasons why I didn't think that happened, it's had nothing to do with Arsenal reneging their promise. It's just that we had the situation with Aaron, where Aaron's left on a free. The crowd were up in arms. Aaron's, in my opinion, maybe £50 million player where we could have got some money out of Aaron. So we're letting Aaron go on a free. Now we're going to, a couple of months down the line, we're going to let our captain go on a free. I don't think our fans would have taken very kindly to that. So I think that was kind of a board decision, fan appeasement. In terms of like Bordeaux on a 5-year contract, good luck to them. Good luck to them. I think, it's what he got what he asked for. Bordeaux clearly do want an experienced player. I'm sure that 5-year contract involves situations where he may be involved in the sort of coaching side of things, moving down the line. So I think that's an excellent contract for both Bordeaux and Laurent. And I wish him the best, I really do. The fact of the matter is that he's no longer part of the football club. He can't influence things. He doesn't want to play for the football club. And as you guys well know from speaking to me over the last few years, once a player says he wants to leave, that's it, out. Don't care how good you are, what you've done for the club. If your mind's elsewhere, you don't want to play for Arsenal, then that's fine. Off you go. Don't want to beg you. Won't miss you. Won't think you. Good. I only want players who want to play for Arsenal Football Club. That's all I'm interested in. It doesn't matter whether you've got Cole Jenkins's ability or you've got Mesut Ozil's ability. If you want to play for Arsenal, you do for me.
Fair enough. I'm glad you used Mesut Ozil's ability in a positive way, Kenny. That's so good.
Well, he's got, as you well know, Mesut Ozil's got world-class ability, and that is never going to change. I am hard on him. Damn right I am, because I know what he can produce, and I know what the player's been capable of. People assume that I've just woke up one morning and said that I dislike Ozil. I've been following Mesut's career since the under 20. When he was in the under 21s under Horst Rubesch in 2009, and I followed his career in South Africa, where he destroyed Gareth Barry to the extent that Gareth Barry could have got on a motorbike here on the cap corner. That's how highly I rate him.
I don't think Gareth Barry can catch many people on that line.
Yeah. So when people say you hate Mesut Ozil, no. Yeah. I dig him out because I know what he's capable of. And until he produces, when he doesn't produce it, I will have a go at him. When he has good performances, I'll say, well, I want a bit more, because when you give Mesut Ozil an inch, it'll take a mile and go to sleep for the next 5 games. So I want consistency from Mesut. That's all I ever wanted.
Fair enough, mate. Drew, Simon Beresford says, if our defence does okay over the next couple of months, does that scupper chances of a strong January window signing?
I don't think we're going to do a January window signing in the first place. So I don't think that necessarily matters. Look how many centre backs we're carrying at the minute. Even if we remove Mustafi out of the equation, we have at least 6 at the club. Why are we going to bring in a second? To me, that would just be kind of a waste. I think what will happen is that, so Raul went on record saying that any player who is under 2 years at their of contract, when they get to 18 months left, if they don't extend, then they're sold. Or unless the club plans on letting them run their contract out and then not re-signing them, they just go out on the free. Socrates is coming to that point in his contract now. David Luiz is only given a 2-year contract from the start. So both of them, after this season, they're going to be on 1 year left. So it's not conceivable to suggest that one or both of them could be moved on. They could be short-term rentals because we're going after a big defensive center next summer. I don't think that happens this window at all. The level of player that our fans are expecting us to bring in as a center back, and you know exactly who I'm talking about, they're not going to get sold in January. So, because you're not factoring how that affects the club and doing this stuff. Yeah. So I don't think you can expect that at all. I think you should expect it next summer. And then we go with what we have. Holding will be back. Hopefully Luiz is bedded by then. Tierney will be fully fit, hopefully. Bellingham will be fully fit, hopefully. That's a really good back four for last season. That's an upgrade across the board. So I don't think we should expect more than that this year.
Fair enough, mate. Right, final question, which we're going to ask both of you, and then we'll get your predictions for the Burnley game. Liam Goff says, Kenny, if all are fit, what are your starting three midfielders?
All are fit. Granite plays, Torreira plays, and I will play. Sadly, I'll have to leave Mesut out, and I'll have to play Ceballos.
Interesting three. Drew?
I would say it depends on if it's home or away and who we're playing. I think,
Of course.
if it's an open game and you want to run at teams and you want to run at pace, I think Ceballos might be a better option than Mesut. It's not that I don't love Mesut Ozil, you know that, but I do think Ceballos would have more to offer in that scenario. You saw him play for Spanish under 21s. You saw how he can be when they're driving at teams when they're direct, not build-up play. But if we're struggling to break a team down and we need someone who has that ability to see a pass that no one else really can, then you play Mesut. It just depends on the balance you want in the team. It depends on if we're doing 4-2-3. If it's a 4-2-3-1, you have to play Mesut Ozil in the panel. You surround him with Lacazette, Aubameyang, and people who can drive. If it's a 4-3-3, then I think you start Dani Ceballos instead of him in the same midfield three with Granit Xhaka and Lucas Torreira. And I think that's a really good balanced midfield 3-4, 4-3-3 in particular. So I think it just depends on what the tactics are in the day and what you're looking to do.
Yeah. I think it is completely down to who we're against it. As I said, if it's a game at home against a bottom half opposition, I'm going with a more Torreira, Ceballos, Ozil could work. I mean, as a more open to play those Torreira at the deeper, then Ceballos and Ozil playing sort of as not even that, but you play 4-2-3-1 with Torreira and Ceballos sort of deeper, and then Ozil in the 10. But I like the idea of seeing a Torreira, Guendouzi, Ceballos midfield with more control. I really, really enjoyed what I saw of Guendouzi against Newcastle, something that we're going to focus on tactical breakdown, I'm sure. But they're the ones that I would go for. So before we go, prediction, obviously, next game will come thick and fast. So now we've started the season, they'll be coming quicker than you think. So Kenny made a prediction scoreline for the Burnley game.
3-1. I think Burnley are going to be got a very good side. You know, they're on the cock a hoop because they've had a good result against Southampton. Ashley Barnes always causes us trouble whether we play him at the Emirates or whether we play him at Turf Moor, and he's going to give our defence a massive test. He's a very good underrated player, and so. But I think that at the end of the day, our pace and our strong runners will just overwhelm Burnley, and we because we now got these options that will help us win the game. If it gets tight, we know we can bring on Pepe, you know, we can bring on Lacazette, and then there's goals in that team now. Well, we definitely know there's goals from Lacazette and Aubameyang. One of the things we need this season, we want to get top four, is goals from all over the pot, not just the two and Pepe. But 3-1's my prediction.
True.
It's tricky, man. Like I bet us against anybody when we're at the Emirates, but Burnley excel where we don't, and because of how well drilled they are when they're in their blocks, it can give us issues depending on who's in the 11 for that day. But if I had to pick, I would say I think we'll win 2-1. I don't think it'll be comfortable by any means. I agree with Kenny. I think they have some players that can really cause us problems, particularly on set pieces as well. And we struggle with defending on set pieces. And for me, you look at the likes of, they have Eric Peters, who's very good on set piece delivery, but Tarkowski's good in the air. Wood, Barnes, both good in the air. That could be problematic. If we give away too many cheap fouls, if we're dealing with set pieces all day, we could struggle. But I'll go 2-1. Another tricky result, but I think considering who we have on match day 3. So, yeah.
I think if this was a game at Turf Moor, I think it would be a lot more tricky. I'm glad that we're coming up against them at this point in the season at home, rather than being able to do it such an early point away from home. And I think that will help us. I think getting the crowd behind us in the first home game of the season, they want to impress. They want to score a fair few goals. We know what Emery's like. He prefers to win by scoring plenty rather than winning and getting a clean sheet. We know that from what he's like. So I think we'll go out attack on it. I think Pepe should hopefully start after getting another week's training in. Maybe we'll even see David Luiz coming to light. But after we saw what Chambers and Socrates did and how Emery spoke about those two after the game, I think there's a high chance that he will start those two again, Maitland-Niles and hopefully Kolasinac, if the whole issue with the Özil and the drama that's going on with those two at the moment is solved. Kolasinac might come back in, but Monreal offers that more defensive side than Kolasinac does. But I'm going to go for a solid 2-0 win at home to the Arsenal. And I look forward to seeing what's happening. My thank you to Drew and Kenny for coming on. Thank you, Kenny, mate. Much appreciated, pal.
Thanks a lot. I finally got the hang of it. I just also want to say, it's a very sad situation regarding Mesut and Said. I think football should take a back seat. I think, like I said, I'm more concerned about them as people rather than just for the players. And I just hope that that despite my disagreements and criticism of them and their performances, I just hope that this doesn't drive them out of this country. Because, footballers, they're there to enter. They shouldn't have their safety being compromised like that because of some gang nonsense that they don't know about.
100%, mate. 100%. And Drew, pleasure as always, pal.
Thanks for having me, buddy. Good to be back.
No problem at all. And thank you to everyone who's joined us in the live chat. I much appreciate it. Sorry for the shortened podcast, but as I said, I am on holiday, so I'm going to try and enjoy it as much as feasibly possible. But you should have a tactical breakdown out for you either tomorrow or on Wednesday. And so you have that to enjoy. So I look forward to producing that for you. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.
Up the Arsenal.